We'll now resume our study of the sanctions regime, and it is my great pleasure to welcome several witnesses before our committee. We have as individuals Ms. Anaïs Kadian, an attorney, Ms. Erica Moret, the Senior Researcher and Coordinator of Sanctions and Sustainable Peace Hub, and a graduate of the Geneva Institute. And also from the government of the we have Mr. Zaw Kayao, who is a spokesman for the government in exile of the Republic of the Union of Myanmar. So each of our witnesses, I should let you know, you get 5 minutes for your opening remarks. After having heard from you, we will open it to the members for questions. So Ms. Kadian, we will first go with you, and you have 5 minutes.
Monsieur le Président, merci. Honorables membres du comité, bonjour. Merci beaucoup de l'invitation à comparaître devant vous aujourd'hui. Je m'appelle Anaïs Kadian, je suis avocate en litige civil et commercial à Montréal et j'ai également un bac en études internationales. Plus récemment, je me suis impliquée avec d'autres avocats et professionnels en faveur des droits de la personne dans les dossiers relatifs à la situation désolante des Arméniens du Haut-Karabakh. 2 de nos mémoires ont été soumis à ce comité, justement, il n'y a pas si longtemps que ça. Un par rapport à l'examen des permis d'exportation vers la Turquie et l'autre concernant le statut du Haut-Karabakh en vertu du droit international. Today, I'd like to speak about the report prepared by the Civil Society Network, Haydn Partners for Humanity, submitted to this committee. It covers the important opportunity Canada has to respond concretely to the human rights crisis created in Nagorno-Karabakh through targeted economic sanctions against the Azerbaijani regime. Since this committee's mandate covers a review of, and I quote, the need for new recommendations resulting from Canada's response to the situation in Ukraine and other situations since 2017, Nagorno-Karabakh is one of these other situations where new recommendations should be made to Canada's response. In fact, the lack of concrete measures such as sanctions have unfortunately only emboldened the Azerbaijani authoritarian regime to continue violating international law and human rights without impediment. Some recent examples include capturing and torturing Armenian prisoners of war in the fall of 2022, as reported by Human Rights Watch, continuing to hold over 100 prisoners of war and subjecting them to inhumane treatment, continuously attacking and killing civilians in border villages and in Karabakh on an almost weekly basis, illegally attacking Armenia last fall, leading to hundreds of deaths and the seizure of 140 square kilometers of sovereign territory, and illegally blocking the Lachin corridor, chokeholding 120,000 indigenous ethnic Armenians from the outside world since last December. On the blockade of the Lachin corridor, Genocide Watch has qualified it, and I quote, as a clear attempt by the Azerbaijani government to starve, freeze, and ultimately expel the Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh. The Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention issued red flag alerts for genocide, stating that the responsibility for this humanitarian crisis lies solely with the Azerbaijani state and particularly with the regime of President Ilham Aliyev. In February 2023, the International Court of Justice ordered Azerbaijan to take all measures to ensure unimpeded movement through the Lachin corridor. Azerbaijan has ignored this order. It remains in blatant violation of the ICJ's decisions to this day. These human rights and international violations fall squarely in those covered by Section 4 of Canada's CIMA and also warrant the application of Canada's Magnitsky Act. The call for sanctions against Azerbaijan have also recently been made by the following government bodies and officials. The European Parliament in March of 2023, which called on the Council to impose targeted sanctions against Azerbaijan officials for not respecting the International Court of Justice's order. The chairman of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee in May. Calls for sanctions were made by the French Senate and the French National Assembly, and by the ambassador to Armenia, the ambassador from Armenia to Canada, who gave evidence to this very committee in January. Genocide Watch and the Lemkin Institute have also called for sanctions against the Azerbaijani regime officials. Similarly, this committee should recommend the imposition of targeted sanctions on the Azerbaijani regime in order to uphold human rights, international law, and justice. Canada's laws allow it to apply specific sanctions in a balanced manner while still maintaining diplomatic relations. Without accountability, there's no justice, and without justice, there can be no peace. Le Canada a affirmé à plusieurs reprises son engagement à promouvoir la justice internationale et le respect des droits de la personne. Je pense que les Canadiennes et les Canadiens s'attendent à ce que le Canada donne l'exemple afin de protéger les droits des Arméniens du Haut-Karabakh et de l'Arménie, comme il le fait dans des contextes similaires. Je salue le travail difficile de ce comité, mais si crucial, qui s'est engagé à étudier ces questions, parmi tant d'autres, afin de réviser l'application du régime des sanctions par le Canada. Je vous remercie pour votre attention et je demeure à votre disposition pour toute question.